Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Clues, Cues and Reviews, and today we're going to be discussing Fairy Tail Chapter 520. In terms of the two chapters that did release, Seven Deadly Sins for me was a more exciting one. A lot of people shit on Fairy Tail, I don't understand it completely. I can relate to a certain degree, but the degree they blow it out of proportions, I do not. And in my opinion, I'm basically going to be reviewing Fairy Tail till it ends, or I'll stop doing any YouTube reviews. So with that being said, let's get on with the review. So, Chapter 520. Let's look at it. Let's break it down. There's 3 segments to it, and then there's going to be discussion points as well in there. So, let's go through the simple stuff. So, number 1, confirmation, Eileen is done. So, Erza says her goodbyes. Erza proclaims that really Makarov was her true parent, and then we get Wendy kind of questioning it. Why is it that I can't sense his aura anymore? What's going on? And then it kind of seeps in as a whole because I'm here for you, and then she realizes he is no more. So that is a quite emotional scene for members of the Fairy Tail. It doesn't really do much to progress the story, but what it does do is it kind of just puts a nail on one chapter of her story, so they can move forward. That's done. Eileen's out the way. August is the only one really left. We'll get to that at the end. Anyway, so that's basically one section done. A good chunk of the actual chapter after that is really about Natsu. Now, this one is interesting for a few different reasons. Now, you can look at it very plainly, and people will be like crying like little babies about this, but I will not, because I don't see the point. Here's what I'm saying. So we get told that Natsu is going to die as a human. He cannot live on as a human. What that ultimately means is basically going to be a dragon or a demon, and he's given a choice. And it is explained that the worry about being what he is he E.N.D, is he a dragon slayer, is he going to be a dragon, is what ultimately led them to grow on their own. Beyond what, that bloody lady did, whose name I keep forgetting because she's not really that important to the story, although she had this thing with Lucy. But Brandish, sorry. So, beyond what she did, they grew on their own because of the stress he put on himself, and essentially, it leaking out and getting pushed in a corner. So this is an important thing to bear in mind, because we see a flashback of the whole conversation with Zev. Not all of it, but it to a certain degree. Now, it made me think: did Zev tell Natsu specifically at that point so he could get to this point, so he could make that decision, make the right decision, and be normal? So was this a way for Natsu to be healed or unshackled from that spell that made him live in the first place? So that's one thing that comes to mind. Now, he's given the decision. When you look at it, ultimately, he was brought back to life using demon ether nanocells, which is the seed. He was brought up as a dragon slayer, which essentially created the dragon seed. But he wants to live on as a human. It does 2 things. It shows you that Natsu doesn't necessarily just think of the options that are ahead of him, the obvious options. He's looking for the unobvious options, thinking outside the box, which ultimately helps explain part of his creativity when he fights. So he's not as dumb as he seems, basically, folks. Now, with that being said, he goes, I want to be a human. I don't want to be a dragon or a bloody demon. And then we see those cells disintegrate. Then he wakes up, he's fine, he has regrets about whatever happened with Grey, he has to survive everybody else, and that pretty much is that section of the story. So, that ultimately, does it deal with E.N.D? Is E.N.D dead? I'll give you a few thoughts at the end of the chapter review, but let's get this next section out of the way. Universe 1 is undone. What does this mean? So everything in the area was shrunk because of a spell that Eileen did. It also pushed Acnoligia away and got him out of the equation. That has now been undone. Now, with that being basically undone, the map has gone back to where it used to be. All the buildings are where they used to be, and the path back to Fairy Tail can now begin like it was originally. Does this bring back Acnoligia? Is he now a pawn in the actual storyline in this specific arc now. A specific arc, sorry. Now, he was probably in the Pacific Ocean somewhere anyway, because it's probably where Eileen sent him. But anyway, now, does that undo that? We don't really know. We have to get that answered. With that being said, though, what happens next? Because they're going to make the path back to Fairy Tail now, right? The next chapter for Fairy Tail 521 is called The Strongest Mage, which I'm assuming is August, and they've got to deal with him. Now, who deals with him? How does this happen? Is it going to be Erza? Really, I don't think so. Is it going to be Natsu? I don't know. He said he's rested and he's recovered miraculously. I don't know. Is it going to be Shanks 2.0? You know who I'm talking about. I want it to be him. He is the strongest mage of Fairy Tail. The strongest mage of Fairy Tail with a manly beard of his, going against the strongest of the 12 Spriggan of the Alvarez Empire. That's the only thing I can think makes sense to me. Gildarts versus August. Let's see it happen. That's my thoughts on it. With that being said, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. I'm excited. I'm happy that some of the shenanigans and stuff are out of the way. And I'm looking forward to it, really. Now, here's the thing though. With the cells disappearing, is he no longer able to be going to a Dragon Force? Even though he doesn't really do that with that much energy. Will he turn into a dragon? Probably not, because the dragonification won't happen now. But will he be able to actually use those Dragon Slayer abilities? Hard to say. He did flame up, so there's a good chance of that. But has this weakened him? Because he was pretty OP when he came back from the time skip. And then he was even more OP with E.N.D. Is E.N.D. dead? Hard to say, because it could be one of two things. It could be basically the dead and buried, and he's ultimately just going to be using fire magic and his his Dragon Slayer stuff, and not turn into a dragon or a demon, or living on as a human, and those two attributes are just attributes that he can tap into, magical elements he can tap into, and he has full control without the risk of them taking over his body. I'm hoping this is a solution for if Zeref dies, he dies. But hard to say how this all will work out. We'll have to wait and see. That is my review. Them are my thoughts. Not the best chapter between the two, between this and Seven Deadly Sins, but it's enjoyable because it sets up, it gets the gears moving again, and it brings things back into frame. Will there be an Acnoligia? Will we see Dragon Force? Will we see E.N.D. again? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Peace.